the number one thing that will take us out of the game that we've seen in our 15 years in this is property management, because it's tough. It's tough to actually deal with tenants all day long, and it's not a fun thing. So, that's one thing. If we get out too early, if we have to leave too early, we definitely miss out. We miss out on that mortgage pay down. We miss out on all that cash flow. And we miss out on all the market appreciation. So, we want to stick in and hang in as long as we possibly can in our investing. And one of the ways to do that is to dial in our property management. If we can dial in our property management and we can get it so that it's not emotional, get it so that it doesn't affect our lifestyle, get all of those things dialed in and systemized, we are going to last a whole lot longer in real estate. And that, again, is when we see wealth instead of cash flow. We actually see wealth. So let's get into the first one. So screening. So our screening starts on the phone. The first thing we do when we talk to someone, the full intention of what we're looking for when we talk to someone, it's on the phone. We want to know right then and there, is it worth our time? What we're going to talk about today is nothing that's, necessarily straight to what's okay in one province and what's not okay in another province, and legislation and laws and RTAs and all that kind of stuff. The tenancy acts are not affecting what we're talking about today. So we're talking about just good old, how do you manage your business? So when you're on the phone, first off, you're immediately talking to them to say, are you a tenant that I want to be dealing with? So I used to allow, email only and text, even talking to them a little bit on that, but it doesn't work, in my opinion. So we dial it back in and we go straight to give me a call. So I'll filter and screen just a little bit. And then I'll say, so yeah, for sure I can, set up a showing for you, or we can schedule a time. Just make sure to give me a call at this number. I'll be free for the next hour or so. So give me a call and we'll set that up. And some people, I'd prefer not to talk. Do you have a 2 p.m. on Saturday or whatever? Like, no, I don't. I do need to speak to you and just clear up some questions, and let's talk some things through first. Generally speaking, if they don't want to talk to me, that's usually a really good sign too. So we're definitely on our phones, but even before that, even our ads are very clear in the type of people that we need to be talking to. So things like in every ad that I have, I say, if you're a partier and you know it, please apply elsewhere. This is a family neighborhood, or noise complaints will not be tolerated, whatever it might be. So if you're a partier and you know it, please apply elsewhere. That is in every one of our ads. We say things like, credit checks, mandatory. So we're not, we're kind of scaring away some people, and that's okay. Because, we have certain standards, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. What are the standards for what type of properties do we have? So, but, our ads are filtering a little bit. So some of those people aren't even going to apply. Some of the people that we don't maybe want to be dealing with, they're not even going to apply because they know that we're not going to take them. We've said it in our ads to them. Pets. We will always address pets. We will tell them whether or not a basement is finished. We will tell them if it's not a fenced yard. I basically go through and tell them all the worst things about the property, all the things that maybe every other property that's similar that they would have seen has, that ours does not. It doesn't have a finished basement. It doesn't have a fenced yard. It doesn't have this. It doesn't have that. And by doing that, I am filtering out so that I am valuing my time. I don't have to talk to those people just to have them say, do you have a finished basement? No, I do not. Done deal. They won't call me. I don't have to talk to them to say to them, we're going to do a credit check and your credit has to be pretty good to get into this property. How is that for you? I don't have to talk to them about that at all because most of them aren't going to call me based on my ads. Now, some still will, and some will still think that you're not going to actually check. And so they'll tell you what you want to hear. They'll tell you, oh yeah, I've got great credit. And oh yeah, I think it's really good. But a few more questions, prodding questions can certainly help you figure that out. So you're going to start with your ads. You're going to screen through your ads. You're going to go straight into your phone and you're going to use your phone as your biggest filter. If you want to have people on the phone with you for 1 minute and save yourself half an hour of time or an hour of time in not doing showings, it's huge, even though, it is actually a little bit of a pain to have to talk to every single person, but that's okay. quality versus quantity. So, and that's so that I can value my time, and that's so that I can dial in and not let being an investor affect my whole entire life and my whole entire lifestyle. Because I know that if I allow that to happen, then I'm going to be out of the game sooner, because that is what we see the majority of people having to leave real estate, because it takes over their life and they just don't have the time right now. So they sell, they get a little bit of money, they get some, they've had some cash flow, they get maybe a chunk of change a bit, but it hasn't changed their life because they've had to leave too soon before that wealth comes into place. So by dialing in things like our screening, we're really going to see an ability to stay in longer and be able to really take advantage of the real power of real estate, that mortgage pay down and cash flow and appreciation and all those things. So we have to set our standards because we bought in such a cross section of real estate. So we bought anything that cash flowed pretty much, or even, broke even, which was not the way to do it. You do need cash flow. We learned the very hard way, so don't make that mistake. But because we had kind of a cross section, we had everything from, executive homes that were like on the highest end of our market, down to, some condos that are not so great, and everything in between: houses, half duplexes, apartments, condos, all kinds of things. So we have to set a standard, not just like last week we talked about our tenant demographic, and that's great. Who do you want to be talking to? Who do you want to be dealing with? So tenant demographic is fantastic, but we also had to set a standard as what will we take and what will we not take in our properties. Now, I can't set the same standard for a $600,000 executive home than I could set for, my $160,000 to $180,000 townhouse condos. I definitely had to have a different standard, but I had a standard. I always set a standard for what we would accept. And why did I do that? Is because when you have a vacancy, for those who aren't investing yet, but certainly those that are investing, when you have a vacancy, you can tell me as much as you want that you're not emotional about your decision and who you're taking as a tenant. But when it's affecting your bank account every single day that it's empty, and when there is no hope in sight, no end in sight, you don't know when that's going to change, that is stressful, and that is going to skew your emotions. You will not be able to make an objective decision because all of those things are coming together to mess up any objectivity. That's a word, yeah. Objectivity that you would have. So you set yourself a standard on what you will and will not take. For example, our standard on credit. We always, like I said, in our, for those that are just joining us, in our ads, we talk about credit. On the phone, we talk about credit. We say to them, so just so you know, for this place, you're going to have a credit score of such and such. It might be 630 if it's in a lower end place. It might be up to 800 if it was in an executive home, especially if it's a furnished one. So, we would say you're going to have this kind of a credit. How is that for you? What do you think of that? And you can tell their answer. If they go, well, I'm not quite sure. I haven't checked it in a while. If you have good credit, you know that you have good credit. If you have bad credit, you might not know it. But if you have good credit, you know it. So watch for their responses. So one of the first filters that you can do in screening on the phone is ask them about their credit. Now, you don't have to say, do you know what your score is? But you would just say to them, this is what you're going to need to get into that place. Do you see any issues with that? We had a question on the Facebook group or in Fearless Investors that I actually want to address too. And that was from Anita. Like, what do you say to someone if you don't want to rent to them, but you don't want to tell them that? You don't want to be rude. And what's a nice way of saying it? So I'm going to share with you at the end how we get rid of people with being really nice about it and just keeping our own standards in place. And it's a great way to kind of say goodbye to people without being rude or being discriminatory, right? Credit. We also have income. So I often will say to them, okay, perfect. So that's great. Your credit's good. We are starting, the income for this place needs to be about 3 times the amount of rent. So for this place, you're going to want to have about $6,000 a month in income, or, whatever it is, $8,000 a month in income, whatever it is. So 3 times the amount of rent. What do you think? Is that going to be an issue for you at all? And I ask them on the phone. If it is, they'll tell us. And they'll just say, actually, yeah, that doesn't work. Or oh no, you know, between this and that, and they'll tell you a story, and you start to be able to see whether or not that the stories, you know, ring true, right? Things like, here's some other things that you want to set some standards on, and this is on the phone. We say to them, so just so you know, it's a really quiet family neighborhood. Is that going to be okay for you? We're not able to take people that don't, you know, that maybe partiers. It's okay if you are. We totally get it. We like to have our parties too, but this area isn't really going to comply with that. So, you know, just so you know, we might have to, you know, adjust there, and people are fine. Now, let's say that they pass that and they get through, and you're like, good, I'll show up. I'll do a showing on this day with you. Great. Then go back to our training from last week, talking about staggering your showings. You're going to stagger your showing. You're going to get everybody, you know, vying for the place and create some energy around it, and everyone wanting to have your place because they think it's the hottest place there is. Now you're looking at, okay, I have an application. I'm happy with the person. Generally speaking, I'm going to accept it. Here's where your emotions come in, where you're like, okay, I am not going to let my stress actually affect how I make this decision. So this is my standard for this place. I set this when I bought it, or I set this after this training for some of you. So my standard is they need to have a credit score of 780, for example, like on this place, or 680 or 730 or whatever it is. So I set this standard. It's a middle of their rents are about middle of the road. They're not super high in our market. They're not super low in the market. They're right in the middle. So I'm going to go for middle credit. If it's one of my like lower end places, which I still do have a few of them, I bring that requirement way down. So 630 is my minimum there, but they're not the nicest places. So I have to actually know and understand I'm not going to get an amazing quality tenant in there. Though I will say that all of our places in there, we have people with no credit. So not bad credit. They just had no credit. Most of them are newcomers to Canada. They've been in them for 3, 4, and 5 years in all of them in this one complex. And they're fantastic tenants for us. So my standard for there is that it has to be a minimum of 630 or no credit. I'm fine with no credit. I'm just not fine with bad credit. So a line we also often say to people is, you know, your credit doesn't have to be perfect, but it does have to be above average. And if they say, well, I had one ding on it 3 years ago and that's it. Perfect. You know what? That's not a big deal. Things happen. We understand that. But just so you know, we'll be able to tell if there's habits, and what we're looking for is habits, because we don't want to be the next person that you're unable to pay is all. So if everything shows that you have really good habits, then that's okay too. And so you tell them that on the phone or whatever it might be. Minimum credit score, 630, or having no credit at all, which is fine by me for those properties, not for the maybe higher end properties. We go through a credit minimum. We go through an income minimum. We go through, are you a smoker? Do you have pets? Now, I set these things for our properties, again, not when I have a vacancy, because I am skewed emotionally at that point. So I'm setting these things prior to having a vacancy so that my emotions don't come into play. So I'm willing to accept what credit score for this property. I'm willing to accept what income for this property. How many pets? Now we do pet rent. We accept tenants with pets. We find we have less vacancy doing it that way. If we screen properly, we don't get that much damage, and we put certain things in our leases so that they have to, you know, do certain things when they move out. They have to clean the carpets. As a condition of having pets, they have to have them deodorized, whatever it might be. Plus we charge them $50 a month per pet per month on average. But how many pets am I going to have? For example, I had a lady call me a couple of weeks ago on a place. She had 7 pets, but she was willing to pay between $50 for the cats and $100 per dog. I think she was about $450 more a month. Is that right? Or $350? I can't even remember what it was. Per month more. That was tempting. It was really tempting. However, not my standard, not what I want to deal with in a year. So emotions out. No, we have a 2-pet maximum in that home. So I didn't have to think about it, and I didn't allow myself to think about it. The fact is, we don't take more than 2 pets in that home. Done deal. I don't have to get emotionally involved. So that makes my job a lot easier when I can just trust that my standards are already in place. So what are your standards? They might not be the same as mine, and each market might be different. But what are your standards for your vacancy. And set those standards at a time when emotions haven't kicked in. You don't have that vacancy right now. You haven't seen that mortgage come out of your bank account without rent going in that month. So set your standards. Some people set a standard as to, and again, this goes a little bit into, there could be discrimination, so you can't really necessarily say or do all of these things publicly or out loud, but do you want to have groups of young people in? Do you want to have work crews in? Where I live, there's a lot of oil workers, and so do you want to have 5-6 guys sharing a house? You can certainly demand a lot of money for that. You can certainly rent to oil companies that will pay the rent, but do you want to have that wear and tear on your home? Again, set your standards there. Do you want families? Some people don't want kids because they, the bottom half of the walls get all scraped up. Okay, so young people, families, pets, smokers, income, credit. There's no exceptions. You don't make an exception for your own rules. You set them for a reason, so you have to live with them. So don't be too strict, because of course you can't expect perfection, especially if the state of your place isn't perfect. Be reasonable in setting your expectations. Be reasonable in what people that are going to move in there should have as a general lifestyle. And then this is my thought with the setting your standards and your minimums, is you set them and you forget them. So just like that, like kitchen appliance, set it and forget it. It's not up to you to change it. It's not up to you to have that right. You set these standards to protect yourself. Allow yourself to be protected. Don't go changing it because you get emotional. How do you get rid of a tenant? Let's say that somebody applies and you don't want them. Maybe you've screened them on the phone and you know that you don't want them. And you're talking to them and you're thinking, ugh, how do I get out of this? I know I don't want them, but yet they're kind of ticking all your boxes. So, one thing that's worked for us through the years is we just get them talking, and we screen and we filter. And I say sometimes to them, sorry, I know this is sounding like a bit of an interrogation. I don't mean to interrogate you, but I do have to protect the asset of our partners. So I do have to ask these questions. I hope that's okay. Those that get their back up, I'm just like, okay, sorry, well, we can't rent that to you, so thanks anyway. That doesn't happen very often, but for those few that do, it's like, perfect, there's my filter. But let's say they keep saying, oh yeah, that they want to see it, they want the place, and I can tell on the phone they're not my tenant demographic that I've preset. Again, last week's training. So I will just say to them, oh, okay, so how's your credit? We need a minimum credit of 840 on this place. How is that? Super unrealistic, right? Super high. Oh yeah, I'm good there. Oh, are you? I doubt it, right? Who knows? I'd be like, okay, how about income? So if my normal minimum on it would be $4,500 a month, let's say, just be like, yeah, we're looking for an income of $10,000 to $12,000 a month on this place. So what's your income? And can you provide proof of that before you have the showing? That'd be perfect if you can scan and send it over to me. So we put really high standards in, and they often can't meet them. So as soon as they say, oh, I'm not sure if I'm going to meet them, I don't know if I'm going to, I don't know about my credit, I don't think it's that high. Oh, I had a ding on it. You know what? It's probably not. As soon as you can, you just say, oh, I'm so sorry. You know what? All the best. I hope you find what you're looking for. And they're like, oh, okay, okay, well, thank you anyway. Okay, bye-bye. And they're hanging up, and you don't have to deal with it anymore. You don't have to say, sorry, I can't take you because you sound really rough. Sorry, I can't take you. You sound too confrontational to me. Sorry, I can't take you. You have 5 children, and this is a 2-bedroom place, and I don't agree with that. So I don't want to put you in my place. Whatever, you don't have to give them a reason. Just set standards really high, and they will go away. So Anita and I were talking about that last week on the chat. And I don't know if you saw that, but she tried it and worked right away. So perfect. Sergio, if you can't get a tenant according to your standards, how long will you wait in order to lower the bar? So good question, because you do want to make sure that you're actually, setting a realistic standard. If you do your research, so if you've set your tenant demographic, Sergio, according to the type of place that you have bought, and you have a really good idea and you've done your research on who's going to live there, what kind of person can I get? Go drive the neighborhood, look at the kind of cars that are living there, and hopefully a lot of them are homeowners, and what kind of incomes and jobs, where do these people work, how many kids do they have, all of those things. If you set all of your standards properly, you probably won't have to revisit. But if you did have to revisit, you don't want to wait for 3 months, that's for sure. But you could do things like running ghost ads, for example. So 2 different ads at 2 different prices. See if you get different people. Maybe it's your price. You know, if you haven't done your homework and you're buying a property that isn't cash flowing with the tenant demographic that you're wanting, then you might have to look at a whole new strategy of, well, am I going to look at, you know, doing a furnished rental here or an Airbnb, or am I going to, you know, maybe do an RTO or something different with this property to get the right person in there. So hopefully you've dealt with in your tenant demographics, in your purchasing. You shouldn't be that far off. How long do you wait? I don't know. I would say a couple months, but I mean, if you're doing your advertising properly, you shouldn't have a vacancy for a couple months, even in a market like ours is, which is really low right now. You should not be having vacancies for a couple of months. So let's say that you do find somebody. You've set your standards, set it and forget it. You've got your standards now. You found somebody that fit them. You think you're going to rent to them. Now, what do we use to screen? We get that question a lot. So we've been using Rent Check Corp forever and a day. We have a really good rate with them. I've heard it's gone up since. They're really kind of archaic in how they do things, and they drive me a little bit crazy sometimes with, you know, their emails and you can't opt out and all this stuff. But that's who we use for the most part. We have used tenant verification services as well, TVS we have used. Great service as well. But something that is just recently I've found out about, and I haven't actually tried it yet, but I've kind of gone on the other side and applied as if I'm a tenant to a property manager that I know. So it was fine. But it's called Neighborly. So I don't know if anyone's using it. Naborly, Neighborly. And what it does is it actually screens your tenants for you. So they provide you free of charge. They provide you a credit check and a criminal record background check for your tenants. So you put your tenant's information in, it sends them an email, they fill out the application, they do the credit check, they do all this stuff. So the one thing I don't love about that is that what I love about doing my own credit checks is that when I have them sign and say that I can check their credit today, that also means I can check their credit in 5 years. So if they do run off and I do need to do any sort of collections and I have to serve papers on them, I can always grab their credit again and I find out where they moved to. So I wait 2 to 3 months and then all of their stuff will be forwarded to their new address and I find out where they live. So that's why I like doing my own credit check. Whereas using Neighborly, you're having them do the credit check. They're checking the tenants for you. They have the consent. I don't have the consent. And so that's why I don't really love that part of it. But otherwise, it's a free tenant screening and it's a free credit check and it's a free background check. So not too bad. Now, what's in it for them? They're then going to contact your tenant to sell them contents insurance. So not a bad deal. They get something, you get something. So other little things like, how are their cars? I will walk them to their car. I will sometimes meet them at their car. They don't like it or expect it or whatever. If it's really dirty, then they, won't necessarily really love that. But I want to see what's in their car and how they keep their car. I want to see their clothes. I want to see even, their phones. Just remember one thing with tenants when they're at a showing. When they're at a showing, they are on their best behavior. When you're talking to them before they are your tenants, they are on their best behavior. So if they are confrontational or rude or pushy or question you on your standards, well, how do you expect someone to get a place in a market like this if you're going to expect that high standard? I don't know. That's not my issue. But I just know that it doesn't fit for what we've set for this place. I'm so sorry, but all the best to you. Good luck. So remember, they're on their best behavior when they're at a showing or before they're your tenants. So make sure that they're respectful at that time. Some people say, I don't care about credit. For the record, we, Investor Life, we care very much about credit. We have found that we don't have to do landlord checks. We don't have to do income checks. We don't have to do job checks. We don't have to do anything. If we have someone with good credit, we have a good tenant. And so pretty much that's our application process now. It used to be a 2-day process for us and phoning people and they had to get back to us and do you have the address for this? And we don't do any of that anymore. We pretty much depend on credit. If they have good credit, they take care of their pets. So it seems. If they have good credit, they pay their bills, obviously. They take care of their homes. They take care of their cars. So it seems to us. So next, property assistance. So What is a property assistant? Now, it's not a term that's standard, I guess. We just made it up when we made the little manual for it. So our property assistants, who are they? What did they do? So I've shared this a few times from stage, so some of you may know about this already, but property assistants for us are people that helped us to run our properties. Now, they are not property managers. They're not licensed, so they can't run around doing things for a whole bunch of other people. But if you hire them as your sole employee or contractor, they can do work for you. They can do things like, getting keys made and putting lock boxes on properties and, checking on cleaning jobs. We had them do all of our move-ins and move-outs. Our property assistants also do our showings, because we find if we have good enough pictures, good enough properties, good enough advertising, the decision is often made before somebody comes to the house. Now, we still stagger our viewings so that we're creating more of that urgency. But when we're doing all of those things properly, we really just need someone kind, trustworthy to open the door and show them around. I can do the rest on the phone. So our property assistants, who are they? A lot of them are stay-at-home moms. Now, we've also had semi-retired or retired people. So, it's people that want a little bit of income and a little bit of something to do work-wise, but they don't want a commitment of, a 9-to-5 job. They don't want the commitment of having to talk to people, all the time. This one lady was like, I was in customer service for years. I love some aspects of it, but I can't do it all the time. But I do miss it. So she worked with us for a few years. But a lot are stay-at-home moms. Now, why does this work for them? We pay them really well for the time that they're putting in. We really do. They get paid very well and they're very happy with it. And I'll tell you our pay structure after, of course. But also they have the flexibility. If they're just getting keys made and running keys to a property to put a lockbox on, they can take their kids with them. They can do that, during the day, before naps or after naps. If it's a showing, it's evenings and weekends. Most moms, stay-at-home moms, will have someone that they can, leave kids with. Those poor ones that don't, crazy. But, most people have an option, but it's usually for babysitting, but it's usually an option in the evenings or on the weekends. So that's why we use stay-at-home moms. They are so loyal. We had them stay with us for years and years and years because they loved getting, they got paid very good for what they did. They could work around their kids' schedules, nap schedules, husbands or partners being able to babysit in the evenings and weekends. All of those things were awesome for them. And so they stayed very loyal to us and we had them for a long time. Now, this is how we worked it. So they did our showings, our move-ins, and our move-outs. Okay. So that's move-out inspection, move-in inspection. Now you have to check your legislation in your area to see if they can do this if they're unlicensed. But as far as I know, across Canada, anybody can. So that shouldn't be an issue for you, but this is your business. So do confirm with your local RTA. They can do, checking of cleaning jobs. We use a company that when we do a cleaning job, we have 48 hours to make a complaint. If we have a complaint, they come back and fix it for free. If we're still not happy, they give you your money back. So far, they've come back and fixed stuff for free. I always am happy with it. So, but I don't want to have to go out and check those things. So they can go. Now, what do I pay them? I pay them $20 an hour to do those kind of running around details. So for $20, she can go out, make keys, drop them off at a property. It's cost me $20 plus $4 for keys or $6 for keys, whatever it is. Same thing with checking a cleaning job, $20. So it's an hour. It's an hour minimum. I don't want someone going out of their house for less than that. So it's an hour minimum. They go, check on it, see that it's clean, let me know. I don't have to be running around. Plus, I don't care if they take their kids with them. Let them. So it's great. They can be making money while they're, running around with their kids. So this is what I do. For me, I still run our ads. I still write the copy for our ads. I still do the pre-screening because for me, those are the most important things. If I get those all dialed in, the showings, I teach them how to stagger showings as well, like we talked about last week in our training. The showings take care of themselves. So I do the ads, I do the screening. I then send it to the property assistant and I say to them, perfect, yeah, sounds like this is a property that we'd love to show you. Sounds like you guys would be a great fit for this place. I'm going to send you on to whoever, Leslie. And Leslie's going to show you the property. So I'm going to send you on to her. She'll contact you shortly. And you guys can set up a time that works for both of your schedule. I'm out of the picture. I don't have to be involved in, what schedules work and what times and whatever. Leslie takes care of booking her own schedule. Now, again, Leslie knows that she needs to have 3 people coming to every single showing. So when I get properties or people coming for one showing, again, like I said last week, I up my ads, I stagger them, I get more and more people over to Leslie, and she's going to get more of them, and she's going to stagger them 15 minutes apart so that we, again, create that urgency or that scarcity. We pay $20 an hour for them to do showings too. So $20 an hour doesn't sound that great, right? And it's not that great. However, we pay them a bonus. So if they rent the place within their first 3 showings, they get a $100 bonus on that place. So technically and very often, if we've staggered our showings properly and done our advertising and our filtering and our screening properly, we can have somebody come in and do one showing. They get paid their $20 an hour for that, and they get their $100 because if they bring in applications that get approved, they get a $100 bonus for doing that. Within an hour, they can do more than 3 showings. So good quality showings, they're making $120 in an hour. And they often will do that. Now, at first, it might take them 2 or 3 showings. If they don't get it within the first 3 showings, they don't get the bonus. There's no bonus after that. So they really, really push. And I usually get a tenant within the first 3 showings because they want that bonus. So how do we pay them for move-ins and move-outs? Now, for me, move-ins and move-outs are a little bit more stressful because sometimes people are a little bit, tough on you and kind of want to fight about things a little bit here and they're a little bit more stressful. You can definitely keep it on a nice, even tone. And actually I should do a training on that because we found some really good ways to get away from there being any confrontation, especially at move-outs. But they are a little bit more stressful. So we pay $50 per move-in and $50 per move-out. Now, if they happen to be able to, again, scheduled, we send it to them to schedule themselves. If they happen to be able to schedule that, a move in at 12 and a move out at 12 and a move in at 12:45, great. Then they're getting paid, $100 and they're there for an hour and 15 minutes, let's say. Yeah, $100. So again, better pay, but they don't get the $20 hourly rate at that point. So yeah, property assisting, $20 an hour. Showings if they get a tenant within the first 3 showings, they get that $100 bonus. It's very rare that they don't get it because they want to make $120 an hour. They can drag their kids to the showings. They can do, evenings and weekends when they don't have kids. Sorry, not to the showings. Let me correct that. They cannot drag their kids to the showings. They have to if they want to drag their kids, they can do things like key releases and, putting lock boxes on the doors, getting keys made, checking on cleanings, that sort of thing. They can drag their kids along. I don't care at all. But for showings, they have to have a sitter. They can't bring them. So let me just correct that. $20 an hour. The bonus if they got a tenant within the first 3 showings, that makes them make $120 in an hour, happens often. Move-ins and move-outs, we pay them $50 per move-in or move-out. So that's the standard. That's what we've been using for years and years and years. Again, stay-at-home moms love it. They want something for them and they want to be able to make good money at it. And they kind of want to get out and talk to actual human beings. So it's a really nice way to get them going. They send me the applications, I process them, or someone in our office processes them. So, that's their only job, is to do the running part in their minivans, sometimes with kids in tow. Great by me, win-win. They're very happy and so am I. So we had a question too on how do you get rid of bad tenants? So let's say that you inherit tenants. So this was Sean from last week. Let's say that you are looking at a property, you're going to inherit tenants. Ultimately, it would be great if you can say to them, hey, I don't want, say to the sellers, I don't want to inherit those tenants, so they need to be gone upon possession. But if, let's say, you can't get them to do that and they can't leave before possession, one great option, and Bill's actually the one who came up with this, so thanks for that, Bill, was he said, well, you could give them 2 offers. So we've said many times before, part of what really made us attractive to sellers that had tenants in place was the fact that they didn't have to deal with the tenants. And for that, they were willing to pay to get rid of that emotion and that issue and just the headache. So we would often, we would say we'd like it vacant, but if they didn't, we'd be like, okay, well, then this is your offer. So we will take care of your tenants for you. We will do the evictions. We will do whatever it takes. We will take care of that. But we want a really good either price or terms, right? And so we would use that as a negotiating tactic. Bill, when I was speaking to him last week about this, he was saying, he says, or you could do 2 offers. One offer with the tenant in, and one offer which is a whole lot less than with the tenant out. And you create like this, it's your choice, it's up to you. So, and again, you're going to benefit from it. We've seen things like giving an option. I've said to tenants before, Kate, we would like you to go by this date or whatever. And if they don't want to or can't or whatever, I'll say, okay, I'll tell you what if we did this? We listen to them and they talk and they say, what their issue is. Maybe it's money, or maybe it's time, or maybe it's help, or maybe it's packing, or sometimes it's we don't have a truck. So I listen to what they need, and then I say to them, okay, tell you what, if you can go by July 30th, or if you can go by August 30th, whatever it is, I will pay for movers, packers, a U-Haul truck just for that day, whatever it might be. Here's my offer to you. If it's money, I'll give you $300 toward moving expenses, or whatever it might be. I will offer them all kinds of things, but the offer expires. So unless they move when I want them to move, if you inherit tenants and you don't want them there, we've often paid them, like, we'll give you your last month for free. We'll rebate it to you when you're gone, so they don't just get it and then get to stay. We rebate it to you once you're gone. Offered them free rent to leave. We've paid for moving trucks. I've paid for packers. We've done all kinds of things. Yeah, packers and helpers and movers. We've paid for all kinds of things if they will leave when we've asked them to. It expires though. If they don't listen and they didn't do it in July, and now August comes and now they're phoning me for me to pay for a U-Haul for them, no way. Your problem, not mine. I gave you full option. So when it's a difficult tenant and you're wanting them out, that's a really good way. So you kind of bribe them. Most of them will go for it, but you have to find out what their pain point is. What is it about moving that they're having a hard time with? What is it about it that they're not wanting to do or not able to do? And that's what you then offer them. And you'll get a lot of them, willing to take you up on that. So thanks everybody. Really enjoyed having you, Terry. We'll talk to you guys all soon. Cheers.